Second. All right, we're live. Yeah, it's funny. The other day, I got kicked off of Facebook, and I had to cancel my Tuesday one. It's like the second time it's happened. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong, So I was like, "What the heck?" But it was funny because I had gotten and when I said kicked off, it just all of a sudden I would go to log in, and they were like, "Please submit your photo ID," and I would actually have to take a picture and then submit it. So
Oh, really?
yeah, it was kind of bizarre.
That is weird.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick here on my end. I'll share it. Tune in live with Linn. Okay. Are you on Facebook at all? Or are you guys?
I am. I don't do a lot of social media. I know I should, but I just don't.
Gotcha. Well, I know it's a lot to keep up with these days. That's for sure.
Yeah, it really is.
People, when they're like, "Hey, did you get my message?" I'm like, "Well, on which platform? On Facebook,
Yeah, right.
Instagram, LinkedIn, email? Like, I don't even know anymore. It's like so hard to keep track of it all.
It's crazy.
Well, for those that are joining us today, thank you so much. I'm super excited to have Linn with us. And man, I feel like almost 2 weeks in a row now. So I don't know if it was last week we got together or the week before.
I think it was.
Okay, yeah. So it's so great to have you back, and I'm excited about this topic too. But I'm gonna just do a quick intro for those that aren't aware of who Linn is, and then we'll roll into kind of our topic for today. So, Linn, it is with great enthusiasm I get to introduce you. Linn Possell is a ordained minister and certified master coach and lead mentor for the positive approach to care. Linn has her bachelor degree in teaching, master's in exercise physiology, and master's of divinity. She has been working with people living with dementia and their families, as well as training both family and professional care partners for the past 10 years. She's got a new training program called Live Well Dementia Training. Live Well Dementia Training. So if you go to livewelldementiatraining.com, which you can see here below, I know they're getting their website put together, and she's got some really great programs for everyone. So super excited, Linn. And also too, Linn wrote this book here called Alzheimer's, A Beautiful Spirit Celebrated, which I'm sure we'll dig into a little bit more today. And that being said, Linn, I guess what I guess when you think about our topic, when it is like spirituality, dementia, prayer, meditation, all that kind of stuff, kind of going on right now with the fact that we're facing COVID. Why do you think that's so important in this time?
Well, I think it's important at all the time, but it also is important now, especially when we're separated, if we are. So if we have a loved one that's in a community that we might not have seen our loved one for maybe 2 months even. So I know that a lot of families at home are struggling with that. I struggled actually with that myself because I wasn't physically with my mom once she needed to live in a community setting. We actually had her move from Florida to Connecticut because that was the best place for her to be. So I found myself being at a distance after being with her for 3 years. So I think this is a really important topic, talking about how can we stay connected, how can we stay spiritually connected with somebody living with dementia while we're physically separated, but also while we're separated in the sense where when most people get the diagnosis of dementia, as well as I did with my mom, we start hearing about the plaques and tangles. We start hearing about all the losses, the challenging behaviors. We're also told that our loved one, who was beautiful, successful, intelligent, funny, whatever characteristics your loved one has, we're told they're declining into this process that it's going to rob us of everything that we know. I heard the same message, but even though I'm an exercise physiologist and I understood physiologically what was happening in my mom's brain, she had young onset frontotemporal dementia, something didn't set right with me. And why it didn't set right with me is because I'm both a Reiki master and an ordained minister. And I thought to myself, if what I believe is eternal about life is the spirit, then mom's okay. Her spirit remains whole and beautiful, just as God and all of God's many names, whatever we want to call that source of life, it created her to be. So I found it was my responsibility then to be able to recognize her and recognize her spirit. And that's really what I found is I had a first seat, first row witness to the transcendence of a spirit. Because while dementia did affect her physically, and it did affect some of the things that she was able to do, what she could understand or what she could do herself, that it did not impact her spirit. So I witnessed the celebration and the transcendence of the spirit. And so I think if we can help people get to that space and recognize that we are spiritual beings, Teilhard de Chardin said, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Right.
And so dementia is part of this human experience. Okay, so what? So what do we do with that?
When you think about, like, when we were talking about your mom, transcending, her spirit transcend, like, do you mean like while she was still with you, like,
Yes.
So your experience, was that a revelation on your end that you had to understand like what that really meant in her world?
I don't know if it was a revelation, but it was kind of proof. I was able to live that and experience it with the person that I most adored in life. Right. So that was awesome. But because of my wisdom, the wisdom tradition that I follow, which is Christianity, but there are also other wisdom traditions that they all basically say similar things. I actually have a book called The Parallel Sayings, and it will have a saying of Jesus, then of Buddha, then of Lao Tzu, and all of the different wisdom traditions, and it shows how parallel all of these teachings are, which is really cool. But because I believed that life is more than just this human experience, that's the foundation on which I stood. And that's what allowed me to kind of be open to whatever happened for her living with dementia was okay, because I knew there was something more. The essence of her life never changed.
Right.
And so because I believed that, I was open to that. And I tried to foster that relationship with us. That was also my experience. So I never lost her.
Right. So like, do you think for some people, is that something, like, when you think about this experience, or the fact that, like, she's having a spiritual, or she has a spiritual, she's a spiritual being and she's having a human experience, like, do you feel like from the sense of like Alzheimer's or dementia, that you're saying that, like, her actual spirit inside of her never changed, that it was more so the external, the body, the brain, these things are the things that changed in her life?
Yeah, those things are what changed in her life. And also in the heart, there are 40,000 neurons that are the same cells that we have in our brain. So there is science that shows that we have an intelligence in our hearts that usually is overridden by this cognitive brain that we have. It's that intuition, it's that sense of knowing. And there are also science that shows that the heart talks to the brain and the brain responds to what the heart says. And so we talk about the wisdom of the heart. So somebody that lives with dementia has that wisdom still there. It's the wisdom of their heart. So how can we help people connect with that and recognize that and kind of foster now maybe my brain isn't overriding the wisdom of my heart now because, I have this dementia going on. And so I'm more of that spiritual essence comes through more.
So the when I'm thinking about that, like, is there a way to touch someone in that way where, like, I'm speaking to them through their heart versus, maybe instead of trying to have a logical argument or a logical reasoning session with someone, is there a way that I can really, like, have more of an impact where it's more spiritual and it's more connecting with them on kind of that spirit level? Because it may be hard to, like, actually, communicate with them through the through their logical reasoning side.
Yeah, so we kind of need to let go of some of those boxes that we put people in, or even like when you think of a wisdom tradition, let's Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, those are all written in languages that we understand, in the culture that we understand. And so we put each other in boxes in the same regard, where I understand you because I understand the language that you're sharing with me. You know, I understand who you are by how you behave and things like that. But dementia then kind of breaks those boxes down, and then we kind of are left with, I don't know how to get to you because I'm trying to do it through these traditional ways. And so if we're able to kind of put those traditional ways aside and look for more creative ways of connecting. So my mom, because she had frontal temporal dementia, she was an English professor and with two master's degrees. So we hear these stories all the time. Brilliant people. Dementia doesn't make someone dumb. It just makes their brain work differently. Well, I found one day an abacus. You know what those abacus, those big abacus that kids use?
Yeah.
One time I found that like on a windowsill where she was living. And that became like a game for us. It became a way to communicate with us. I would move things over and then I'd give it back to her, and she'd change it all up, change the order, and then she'd slide it back to me. And so we have to find non-traditional ways to stay connected. But if our belief is that the essence of our being is the spirit, then we can work with that. And so most wisdom traditions, they ask us to live a compassionate life. Well, what is compassion? But compassion is, I understand you in such a way that I am moved to help your experience be different.
Right.
So,
What are some, like, maybe in your mind, like some practical, like, I mean, I know when you shared that story about the game that you guys played, but like, what are some maybe other examples of some, practical ways? And then maybe, I know you had mentioned too for a little bit, like there's a scientific element to this too, just, with the spiritual side.
So real quick, religion, spirituality is our sense of something greater than ourselves.
Sure.
Our sense of being connected to the numinous, to something, whatever we call that is greater than ourselves. Religion is the lens through which we see that.
Right.
Other, and we talk about that other. And so that's where prayers and music and the rituals that we learned as children and that we grew up with, those are really good ways to connect with somebody and connect with the sense of their spirituality. So we know that traditional language is really affected with dementia, but for some reason, music, poetry, and prayer, I can still connect with. Right. So even if I miss words that you're saying, if I say a traditional prayer, it still connects with me. Attuning yourself with another person, so slowing down your heart rate and getting to a more, kind of a meditative state, and then touching that person. And there's science that shows that the heart rhythms that I have when I touch you will be the heart rhythms that you have. So if I come to you stressed, or I come to you thinking that something's wrong, but if I come to you feeling, peaceful and I want to share love with you, that kind of thing. And it doesn't really matter what you can give back to me. It's about what can I give to you in this moment, and how can I connect with you? Yeah.
So like, do you think because so an interesting story the other day, we had one of our residents, and she was having a really difficult time. She had recently moved in with us, but with just everything going on with COVID, she's not able to see her family and be around everybody as much anymore. And so, it's been tough on her. And I know, like, she was struggling one day and was having a really difficult time. She reached out to one of our staff members, and in that moment, everyone was really busy because it was kind of like a point in time where we were getting everybody ready for bed and getting everyone kind of like in their nighttime routine. And so she really needed someone to kind of be with her in that moment. And so one of our girls, she had stopped what she was doing, went into the room with her, and literally sat down with her and started praying with her. And it was almost like, and she was sharing this experience because it gave her chills, like even the next day when she was talking about it, because it was like whatever happened in that moment, it was like there was a almost a supernatural, force or element to this experience that like literally lifted, like she became less stressed. She like whatever was going on, whatever turmoil was happening in her mind or her body that was causing her to like, feel this way. It was almost like that completely just left her in that moment. And even like, beyond that, she finally was able to go to bed and was able to like just kind of relax and wasn't so, stressed out. And even our caregiver, like who had shared the story with us, she said the same thing, like because it was a tense moment, and she was saying even for herself, it really helped calm her down even in that moment, because she was, in her mind, she had so many things that she was like trying to get done before the end of the shift, and she was trying to do all these things, but she knew she needed to take care of one of our residents, and so finally in this moment, she had this prayer, and she was fine. She was relaxed. She felt like she could get back to her routine, and none of this was going to cause any disruption, And so it's just interesting how like how high strung everybody got, but then how all of a sudden it was like supernaturally, there was peace, there was love, there was joy. They connected, and it was like it fixed the problem, but it was just a simple prayer. It was just simply sitting down and connecting that way,
Yeah, so those are a bunch of great points that you brought up. So one is setting our intention. So your caregiver, excuse me, was stressed out, but she was aware. So that's part of compassion. I'm aware of what's happening in the present moment. So that's Buddha calls it, I'm awake. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So awake to the present moment, setting our intention to what do we want in this present moment. Instead of, I don't want you to be different or do what I need you to do to get to bed because I have all these other things going on, but recognizing what that person needed in that moment and becoming present for that person and using a traditional prayer to do that. So when we set our intention, and I think we were talking about this last week, the research that has had caregivers take 5 deep breaths and scheduled it for 5 times a week. And their cortisol, their stress level went down. So doing deep breathing, and even I used to do this with my residents, doing deep breathing in their presence. And I could see that then they would start to slow down their breathing with me as well. So setting intention, using these traditional things that somebody might resonate with. So if I'm Christian or if I'm Buddhist, or if I'm Muslim, that I go to something that's traditional that I resonate with so that I can connect with that. And then you help me do that. So she was kind of like a conduit for that.
Right.
So the research does show, they have some studies out to show distance healing, and that prayer actually does affect the person that you are praying for. So there's been studies with people living with AIDS, women with breast cancer. There's all different kinds of studies out there that show that there is a positive effect of reducing stress, promoting healing. But the one thing about prayer is that prayer isn't about, going to the grocery store and getting what you want, or, asking something to present to you what you want to have happen. Prayer is really about being changed yourself. So Soren Kierkegaard, who's an ancient philosopher, said that prayer doesn't change God, prayer changes the person who prays. And so thinking about how do we become the intention that we have for this other person. So if you were stressed out and I wanted peace for you, that I would try to, sounds like your caregiver did a good job about this, really kind of emoting or bringing peace to myself so that I can be that peace for you, rather than just asking some supernatural thing to, whammy, put peace on you. Instead, through my prayer, I become that intention for you.
Gotcha.
And then I help you. So you were asking for some like simple ways to do that. I think your caregiver was a great example of bringing in those traditional things that I will resonate with. So what were the hymns that my mom used to love to sing, or the prayers that she knew? Being out in nature is proven to be one of the most spiritual places you can be.
Well,
But
that's
it,
why it
yeah,
frustrates me with this whole beach thing, because I'm like,
yeah,
it's like I'm just saying, like, right now it's like, the fact that we have everyone, in Florida at least, it's just hard to think about, because I'm thinking like the beach to me seems like one of the most healing places you
yeah.
could be, whether it's the
Hmm.
salt water in the air, or just, I mean, I'm like, the doors can't even last like on the beach, the air conditioning
Yeah,
units don't last on the beach. Like, how's this virus gonna last on this beach? But
right.
but at the same time, like, I think about that, I'm like, wow, what, like, I feel like that's, and maybe in my world, that's my healing, that's my zen, is on the
Yeah,
beach, where some people might prefer the mountains and things like that. But
right.
I know for me, nature is all about, I got to be on the water, and that's just, that's all of a sudden I'm high strung all the time, but you put me
Yeah,
out there and I'm like, whatever you want. I'm just,
yeah.
at peace.
Yeah, so we have people who are home with their loved one, and we know that that person really resonates with nature or resonates with the beach, and I can't be at the beach anymore right now. So what are some of the senses that we can bring to you that is like the beach? What are some of the smells? What are some of the sounds? What are some of the things that I would feel when I'm at the beach? Because people are oriented to their world through the six senses. We say usually traditionally five, but there's six. There are actually eight sensory systems. We don't have to get into that. But it's sight, it's hearing, it's taste, it's smell, it's touch. It's also movement. Movement is the sixth sense. So how I'm oriented to my world, you kind of order those things of how everybody's different. Those are also our spiritual on ramps.
So
So
when you say
to help
movement, though, like, do you mean like when someone's like
moving,
walking, or like
moving,
if they
yes,
approach
moving.
somebody?
So
Okay.
somebody's that's highly kinesthetic is oriented to their world through movement. I would guess, since you said you're always moving all over the place, you're probably one of those. I'm one of those myself. So if I was now in a wheelchair because of dementia, I would really need you to move me. I would
Right.
need you to walk with me, get me out, let my body still move through space, because that's how I'm oriented to my world, but that's also my spiritual on ramps.
Mm.
So if you know that about your person, that they're very auditory, that then music and prayer and listening to sounds will connect me to my sense of spirituality. If it's visual, then it'll be, what I can see that connects me to my sense of spirituality.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I was just thinking about that, because, like, I was thinking about, like, on the weekends, sometimes, we have a little maybe a year old now, this Friday, and so, like, with everything going on, we have, our two little kids, and so we've been kind of like, stuck in the house and not really been
Yeah.
able to do much. But it drives me crazy, because during the week I'm go 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 go, but come Saturday I'm like, I go stir crazy, So
Yeah.
just because, like,
Yeah.
I'm not on the go the entire day, So I can
Hmm.
totally see, like, maybe someone that has dementia, if they couldn't express that to you, that might just be
Right.
what they're going through if they're having a difficult time.
Exactly. And so those are some of the things that we need to know. We need to pay attention to about that person, because we're still spiritual beings and we still want that connectedness. And if I can't tell you how I do that, then we're going to have to find ways to help me connect that way.
So is that a matter of diving deeper into, like, understanding that person's, like, would it be helpful for me to, like, go and talk to the family and dive deeper into their history, like what they worked
Yeah.
like, were they type A personality, were they like, were they more like homebodies, like knowing those things, would that kind of help?
Yeah, that would really help. And then what are some of the traditions and rituals, ceremonies that they really liked? What were their favorite, songs? Do they do prayer beads? What are some of the symbols that let me know that I belong here?
Right.
So, what are the different symbols of the different wisdom traditions? What are those rituals and ceremonies that I might resonate with? And knowing that one thing, especially with this COVID-19, is knowing who is the introverts and who are the extroverts. The extroverts are, like within your assisted living, they're going to be the ones that need to see other people, whether they're 6 feet apart, 10 feet apart or however you can social distance, but they're going to be the people that actually need to see other people. Introverts, they are connected. They have like the very strong connections with just a few people. They're going to need the right person. So it's not just that any of your staff goes in and spends time with me if I'm an introvert. It's that person on your staff that I really connect with. Gotcha. So introverts, it's the right person. Extroverts is I need people, generally speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. Because I know we have we have a couple people that I can think of right now at our facility that they're extroverts, and I think it's just driving. Every time I go and I visit and I spend time with them, I can just I'll be like, hey, how are you doing? And they're like, we're okay. I can just tell inside it's just eating them up. They can't be out and about. So it's tough. It's definitely a tough time for that. It's so in your science from a science standpoint, because I'm curious to even know, does that go back to the heart and the mind type of thing, or what's the science behind connecting with that person's spiritual side?
Well, so there are a lot of there are some really common research out there, or that a lot of people know about, the Tibetan monk, where they studied those, the nuns, that they studied their brains when someone does meditation for a long period of time, actually increases the size of your hippocampus. It increases the activity of your prefrontal cortex. It changes the wave patterns that are in your brain. And so it really does change the physiology of your brain when you're doing prayer meditation yourself. But also the science shows that there is healing that happens when we pray for the healing of someone else. Now, does it eradicate disease and things like that? We haven't found that, but it does decrease stress. And I don't have to be in the room with you.
Gotcha.
That there is something more to it, because the spirit isn't bound by space and time. So it's not stuck in these four walls that I'm in just because that's where I'm sitting to pray.
Sure.
So so there's some science out there that shows that they do have some very beneficial effects on people.
One thing, and this might help people out too, and because for myself even, I've been trying to understand what does meditation look like for someone like me, because I every time I've ever tried to do what I think of meditation, where I'm in a room I just I have a hard time visual. I haven't been able to actually do it, to be honest with you. And I've tried a couple of times, but I feel what am I supposed to do right now? So maybe some actual practical advice on what does meditation actually look like? Are there different forms of meditation? Are different personality types, do they meditate differently, or is it helpful for them to meditate differently? So
that's a great question. So that goes back to those spiritual on-ramps.
Okay.
So for instance, I am one of those people oriented to the world through movement. So I meditate while I'm running, because it sets my mind, puts my brainwave in the space of being able to be, open and present to the moment right now. So a lot of time people can meditate while they're gardening, or where they're baking, or when they're some people can be still and meditate. So it's about what stills your mind, what allows you to be kind of open to the essence of the source of life, to the awakening to the consciousness that we all are part of. We are expressions of the collective consciousness. So a lot of times breath work is helpful. If you just pay attention to your breath, pay attention to the miracle of living, which is when you attend to your breath, it's easier to pay attention to the miracle of living, to be right here and now.
Right.
There is guided meditation where people will talk you through a meditation. There's a lot of good meditation. Actually, I do a lot of meditation that Oprah Winfrey and Deepak Chopra have done series and series and series of different meditations. So they have a little talk in the beginning, maybe a 5-minute talk, and then Deepak Chopra will give you the Sanskrit type of the words to say as you meditate, and then there'll be some music. So there's some really great resources out there. So you don't need to be still necessarily in a dark room, chanting Om or whatever, and just being completely silent, because thinking that we have to pray a certain way or have to meditate a certain way, it makes us feel like we're doing something wrong. And when we judge ourselves or we judge another person, we stop our spiritual growth. So we need to recognize and accept who we are, how we are oriented to the world, what are our spiritual on-ramps, and then try to do our meditation and prayer through that. So it's whatever changes us. It's whatever makes us aware and present to the present moment right now.
Now, when you think about that, is that something where, because sometimes when I was talking to a friend of mine about this, we were trying to, or I was trying to express to him, that sometimes I feel like in my car is like my Zen place, because I drive about 45 minutes to and from work every day, and it's like the area, or it's like the point in time where I feel like I don't have any distractions. It's the same route I've been taking for 2-3 years. It's like in the time I take it during the day, there's not a lot of traffic. So it's not like I have to sit, be too focused on all the traffic. So for me, that kind of is like a point of meditation, but I've noticed that during that time, I'm thinking a lot. So when you're meditating, is like having all those thoughts running through your head, is that bad for meditation? Or is that actually part of what meditation is?
So meditation is more about being open to the moment rather than running thoughts through your brain. But when we're meditating and something pops up, a sensation or a thought, we just say, oh, there's the thought, and let it go, and see if you can be kind of open to what what is present in the moment. Yeah.
So ideally, I wouldn't be having all those thoughts.
You wouldn't be like, they call it monkey minds, I think.
Right.
Where it runs around, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So one of the meditations that I like to do with care partners is where they do the meditation or prayer for themselves, and then they do the same one for their loved one. And it's really about sitting and taking through, deep breaths, and bringing that breath in, focusing in your heart. And the 4 lines that we say are, may you be well, may you be happy, may all things go well for you, may you be peaceful. So first we say it for ourselves. So may I be well, because if I'm just like your caregiver,
right,
she was able to get out of her stress so she could be present for that other person. So if I'm stressed out, it's really hard for me to be present for you. So first I try to bring the intention to myself, but then we use that as a meditation, and we say that over and over again for about 5 minutes with music in the background or whatever. But it's may you be well,
right,
may you be happy, may all things go well for you, may you be peaceful. So it's not, will you do what I want you to do? Will you stop rummaging around in the, in the refrigerator? Could you just brush your teeth? No, it's may you be well.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, is that something that like when you think about like you're speaking that out, is it connecting to your heart type of thing? Is that repetitive nature actually what helps your heart to connect to the words or what you're trying to say?
So that tries to help, that sets our intention. And so we try to focus into our heart. There's also, it's called the Heart Math Solution. It's a book. There's an institute for heart math, and this is where a lot of this information from the heart comes from. Mm-hmm. But they have picked up energy that the heart sends out, which is up to 10 feet from the core of your being.
Wow.
And so it really does affect the person that we're in proximity to, what our stress level is. So if our intention is for you to have peace, it's really important for me to set that intention in myself first so that I can then bring that to you.
Did you go to or learn about these things? Like, I know you have your master's in divinity and also in the physiology. Did you learn that stuff or go to those classes or prior to you caring for your mom, or was that something that you did after you cared for her?
A little of both, because I read all the time, and I'm writing another book actually. But the book that I wrote is about connecting with somebody on a spiritual basis. I didn't want that book to be about my mom and the experience I had with her. I wanted it to be about connecting to someone on a spiritual basis. My publisher and my mentor, a couple other people, asked for me to put some examples in there about what my experience was with her. So I've done that. But it's really about how do we rethink this thing called dementia. And so, because I knew that she's a spiritual being and that is what is the essence of her being, then for me, mom had dementia, so what?
Right.
That it really didn't affect our relationship in that way.
Right.
Right.
Well, I guess I didn't know if you took note of those things, I guess from a spiritual level, more if you looked at it in that way more closely because of your experience with her, or if through all your training even prior to that, that was something that you were still kind of investigating and learning about.
I think it was easier for me because that's what I believed anyway, and that's kind of how I lived my life anyway. Because, I was ordained, I was a Reiki master, I've done all this, reading and writing before she had dementia. So the dementia actually kind of let me see it happen.
Gotcha. Right.
It gave me proof. It gave me the human experience of it. Yeah. And then, the new book that I'm writing is called Changing the Story. And it's looking at the different sacred stories of all the different wisdom traditions and how we have, in a sense, I believe, robbed people living with dementia of their sacred story because they still have a sacred story. And what is that? And how do we get back to helping them live out their sacred story?
And what would be a good suggestion for that in your mind? To help someone on that journey, or to help maybe an organization or a caregiver to approach that a little bit differently?
Well, for one is, kind of letting go of what makes a life valuable. Rabbi Heschel says to live is holy, to be is divine. So all life is sacred. So your life is sacred regardless of what you can do. Your life is sacred regardless of if you recognize me anymore. Now my job is to recognize you. How do we let go of what we think could be or should be? If we let that go, then we're freer to be present in the moment with that person. So kind of letting go of it should be different. I want it to be different. And letting go of that idea of this should be a different experience for me. But so celebrating that person in whatever way you can, in whatever way that person can connect with you, celebrate those connections.
It was interesting when you were saying that. For some reason, I don't know why, it was just popped in my head, because I've noticed just on social media lately that there is such a polarizing effect right now with people in the camp of stay home, and those in the camp of I don't want to go into the details of it. I just want, but this observation, but those on the other side of there's a lot more kind of conspiracy type of things coming out where there's all so you have these polar opposite divides, where you have some people in this camp and some people in this camp. And it's interesting because when you were talking about that person with dementia, it's almost a cognizant caregiver with someone with dementia, it's almost like the same thing, where that person on this one extreme side may not be able to understand or see the world from this other person's perspective. But it doesn't mean that I shouldn't still celebrate that person's individuality.
Right.
right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. You know, if a person whose brain, isn't affected by dementia has a hard time understanding the person who's got dementia,
Right.
but the person who's got dementia has a hard time
Right.
understanding me.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
and you're just okay because
Right.
because you're a sacred being. So
Right.
you're okay.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a really interesting point, because I feel like if we could approach, whether it was someone with dementia or whether it was like the
I know.
extremists on the other side of the spectrum that a person's on, being able to celebrate that individuality. That's, I was like, I was gonna make a joke like, whether you're an extremist or conspiracy theorist, you're right. Let's go have a drink.
Yeah.
Just like, it doesn't matter what side of the spectrum we're on. We just have to understand that, like, that person, especially with that person with dementia, is they're even if I can't reason with them, even if I can't have a logical
Yeah.
conversation, there, I need to find those ways to connect from a spiritual standpoint. How can I connect and meet that person kind of in the spiritual realm?
Yeah. Because we're all just trying to do the best we can
Right.
in the moment,
Right.
that's presented for us.
Do you think a lot of times, like, having this conversation and talking this through with people, is that helpful for them to? Because I think sometimes too, like when you're caring for someone, you can almost easily lose track of this understanding, where like
It is, it is hard when you're really tired or you're stressed out. You get you don't have any kind of respite or anything like that. It's hard to, stay in this mindset when you're just trying to get things done. But that's like last week when we were talking about, if you have a moment to rest. Don't go do the dishes.
right,
Don't just
right,
pile something else up there. Take the moment, because we are spiritual beings. And so it's really, really important to pay attention to that and to nurture that piece about ourselves.
do you think it's something that, like, with a situation like that, is it difficult for, like, like, for people to, like is there a way to train your brain to think differently about, like, that situation? So, like, meaning, if I can catch myself every time, what are some exercises I should do that could help me get back on track when I'm trying to speak to that person with dementia? If I'm, maybe it's a spouse, and I feel like spouses are the ones that always seem to have the most
Yeah,
arguments,
yeah, right.
and there's like almost like there's like a, I feel like there's more of an understanding when it's a mom or someone's father or mother versus when it's their
Mhm.
spouse. I feel like they can never admit or see the fact that their loved one is suffering from dementia, and they just treat them as if they're
Right.
like,
Well, and that's because, we've been maybe living with each other for 50 years and we know each
exactly,
other's buttons, and there's patterns and dynamic and history all there. But it
but
does change when I have dementia. So taking those 5 deep breaths, remembering that this person's brain is actually dying and that they're doing the best they can, because if they could do better, they would. And because my brain is dying, I really don't have that ability to manipulate you anymore. It might look like that. And depending on what the different dementia is, so if I have frontal dementia, and I don't have any impulse control. So I could literally hit you or strike out because I'm stressed, or I'm frustrated, and I don't know how to communicate with you, or I feel threatened, or whatever it is. And I can then see what happened and apologize. Well, that looks like I knew what I could do better than that. But if I have frontal dementia, I don't have that impulse control anymore. But then I can recognize what happened and apologize. So letting go of some of those dynamics are really, really hard. And maybe some of the wounds that we've created in this relationship, remembering that I'm not in that place anymore where I might not be able to apologize for what I've done in the past, before I got dementia, or, we can't resolve those things anymore. But taking like those, 3 to 5 really deep breaths, setting that intention of, I recognize this person, their brain is changing, and this is the best they can do in this moment.
sure.
It is hard to do. It really is hard to do.
Yeah, like, I guess, I think it's like, maybe having these conversations too, like, help kind of is that constant reminder where it's like, in
Yeah.
some ways, us talking about it is like, you're kind of role playing in your mind. How can I approach that person?
Yeah.
Or how do I change the way I think about this situation? Maybe,
Mhm.
what would be, I guess, like, I would love for you to kind of maybe share a little bit about Live Well Dementia Training, what you're doing there, and then maybe anything else that you might want to add or just share with us, while we have this time with you today. So,
Sure. Well, again, the deep breathing
yep,
and setting our intention is really, really important. Finding whatever modality works for you that kind of centers yourself, even if it's 5 minutes a day. If you can do 5 minutes a day, and they call it spiritual disciplines because it is a discipline. It's something that you have to practice every day, and just set that much time aside, and then add to it as you can, but making that kind of a habit for you, so that it becomes part of your day. It becomes part of who you are, and see if that is a change. But finding what modality works for you. Running works for me. I write my best sermons. I think my best thoughts when my mind is still, and it's usually when I'm doing something physical. So
right.
that repetitive motion of running, the farther I go, the better I do, but that's just me. Some people can be still, so finding whatever that is for you and making that's okay. Whatever works for you is good. So the Live Well Dementia Training, I've been in education for 30 years. Now I'm starting to say how old I am, but I've done a lot of different types of education. I started as an athletic trainer. And so athletic trainer, if you don't know what that is, we're the people that when someone gets hurt on a field or on a court or in sports, we go out and we take care of that person. So we do the care and prevention of athletic injuries. So the whole thing about my athletic training was I have this knowledge about the human body and what happens, how you can get hurt. And I have to bring that to every situation. So when an athlete goes down on the field, I have to run out, pay attention to where they are, what's going on, what do they tell me, what do I know about this, and then come up with the best possible solutions. So I brought that into also my years of dementia training as well and these traditional model of training is that training is an event. And social science shows that doesn't work. No matter how great it is. I mean, I can put on a great workshop and you'll all love it. But if it's an event training, it's only going to make 20% of the people there do anything different. So how do we reach a broader audience? How do we help people not just learn tips and techniques of getting the person to living with dementia to do what we want them to do, but how do we support the well-being of their life? And so this is a whole different method of education, and it's ongoing, and it's based on the individual residents or the individual person for whom we're trying to support.
So like, is it a matter of like, are you focusing more on like how they handle or interact with the person they're caring for? Are you focusing more on how they themselves like process and deal and taking this information? Is it more focused on the actual caregiver or how the caregiver actually cares for the person that they're caring for?
It's focused on the individual.
Okay.
And it's entirely so at the end. So this whole process is to create, and it's patent pending actually, program and platform of creating a wellness review. So the wellness review is the model of education and training, and we come out with a wellness plan for each person. So helping the staff or the caregivers pay attention, understand the person in such a way that now I know how to support the well-being of your life? How do I create a flow of the day for you? How do I support you in such a way that you still feel empowered, that you still have autonomy, that you still feel like you belong? So the 4 questions that this method uses is based in Dr. Christopher Cook's work from the University of Western Connecticut, and he wrote a book. It's for educators, but it's called The Compassionate Achiever. And so the 4 questions, or the acronym is LUCA, and the word Luca means bringer of light. So I think that's a cool metaphor. Yeah. But Chris gave me permission, and he loves the fact that we're doing this with dementia education. So it's about look and listen. What do we know? What do we see? What do we hear from you, the person living with dementia? Then what do I know about that? Do I need to know more about that? Or like, what does what you're showing me tell me about you? Then C is connecting to what are the possibilities for me to support your life? And then we choose what's our action plan for you. So it's all about supporting the well-being of your life based on what I know about you, not what I know about dementia.
Gotcha. So it's almost like personalized, like personal, like individualized approach to caring for this person.
To supporting that person. So I try to get away from the word of care. Okay. I don't need to care for you. I need to support you in your life. What does that look like? You can't feed yourself anymore. I will support you in that, but I'm not taking care of you. I'm supporting you in your life. And so the whole team is the support team. So everybody is involved in this process. Everybody has a piece of the wellness plan. And so it's also ongoing. It never stops. Yeah. So it's a monthly conversation that we have based on the people that we're supporting.
So that's part of that repetition. That's part of that repetition thing where it's like, okay, this has to be ongoing. It can't be one time, because it's not like, because I really, I guess, like, whether I'm the person that's actually supporting that individual, like I need to be reminded of that on an ongoing basis. Otherwise I might fall into my old habits, of my whatever previous training I might have had or whatnot, So
right. So Albert Einstein said that education isn't about remembering facts. It's about training the mind to think. And so I believe that. So this is about helping caregivers.
Right.
And I try to get away from care partners to support team, to help the support team learn how to, in education, we call it higher level thinking or critical thinking. How do I help you be in a place where you can critically think in the moment so you know how to support me in this moment?
Right. Absolutely.
Rather than just throw a bunch of theory at you, make you remember all little steps and techniques and things like that. It's about how do I get you to a place where you feel that you have a mastery over this, that you feel empowered, that you feel like you have autonomy to support somebody in their life. So then they feel like they're empowered, they have autonomy, and that they belong wherever they're living.
That's awesome. Is that something that, like, when you're doing that ongoing training with them, is that like a one-on-one, like FaceTime consult, like how we're having today, or is that more of like with a group setting, but just kind of like going over the reminders of the education side of how they, understand how to care for their loved one?
So we can do it in a bunch of different ways, but what way we have it set up right now, because of all the virtual, is that I will provide you with the program.
Okay.
If you have somebody in your community that wants to run the program, I will train them in the program. Then we'll have a library of videos that support, and a curriculum and a guide on how to do this program, so that you can do it in-house. I also provide 4 hours of training for your staff to kind of get you up and going. And then you could also hire me to do either on-site visits or virtual visits to run the program, to run the wellness reviews, or to kind of come in and do some, problem solving if there's a problem solving. But this is this is about changing the conversation in dementia.
Right.
And it's about proactive rather than reactive. How do I get you to do what I want you to do? No, how do I create a day so that you're not at the door? Rather than teaching you a tip of how to get Lynn away from the door,
Right.
how do I create a day for you that you don't look for the door because you have this sense of belonging? So
it's so important. I feel like right now, like it's so weird with the world that we're living in right now. I feel like we're living in this world where like I feel like just like you know what you're saying, it's like it's always been done that way. And so this is kind of like the training we grew up with or that we have today. And it's like it really is a completely different approach to it, you know. But at the same time, it's on the preventative side, which is just so incredible. You know, I just love the idea of how like how much more effective that could be, you know?
Yeah. So, and that's how we embed the ongoing education is through the wellness reviews, and they happen every month.
Okay.
And it's so we set people up in teams, and then they have specific residents that they you know do these on, and then we disseminate that information across the staff. But we get ongoing education. That's how you would see the progression of dementia, rather than me stand up here and talk about these are the progression of dementia, these are the different scales, blah, blah, blah. When we talk about Chris every month, we see what happens. And now I actually see the progression of dementia for Chris. Rather than just in theory.
In general, yeah, that's awesome. I love it. It's great stuff. It really is. You know, for anyone that doesn't know Lynn or hasn't come across her material, this is I know the book that she sent me the other day, which I'm excited to dive into this weekend. What I like about it is I think I can knock this out in a day. So
that was the goal, because when someone's stressed out, they don't need a textbook type of thing. So I wanted it to be really, really user friendly and easy to read. That was the whole point of that. Yeah.
I love it. And then if you guys are interested in learning more about Live Well Dementia training and what that means, whether you're a community professional that is tuning in or sees this, or whether you're caring for a loved one in your own home or supporting a loved one, I'm going to learn to say it properly. Supporting a loved one in your home, or you know, this is just a great opportunity to learn maybe a new proactive approach to supporting them and helping both you and them get through this time together, you know? So I appreciate your time again, Lynn. Man, I feel honored that we got to do it twice. So I look forward to, you know, just being able to work with you even more. And I look forward to more people, you know, being able to benefit from what you have to share with them. So thank you again so much for everything.
Thanks, Chris.
And for everyone tuning in, thank you for joining us again today. Just a reminder, every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m., we're going to be having, I think we have experts booked all the way out through the end of May on different topics, different fields, different, you know, different categories and stuff. So look forward to having everyone join us. And we appreciate everyone for your support, and stay happy, stay healthy, and stay safe out there, guys. You take care. I don't know if you're